There's so many things we could care about, and then sometimes we can't access care for some reason. We can't access empathy.
How can we be as effective as possible with our charity, with our altruism?
Where is your line as far as what your community is that you care about?
How much distress do we feel when we see that Sally is starving versus when we see Sally's village is starving? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the People Fuss podcast. My name is Doug Daniels.
And I'm Carrie Prince.
And we are here to discuss the fuss about people. That means we're talking about the human connection around life, love, and leadership. Oh, and disconnection, as it turns out.
Yeah. Disconnection. Connection. Disconnection.
Yeah, thank you for that visual.
You're welcome. We need a visual.
We do. Carrie Prince, what's the fuss about today?
Okay, so lately I have been thinking about why people care or don't care about things and why we care so much about the people that are closest to us, and sometimes we don't care at all, especially about large groups of people that might be suffering across the world or across the country, or just why some people care and where that sort of line is between caring and not caring. And there's so many things we could care about, and it could be overwhelming, and that's not a good thing.
Yep.
And then sometimes we can't access care for some reason. We can't access empathy, which is kind of our word for the day.
Empathy
right?
is the word of the day.
Empathy is the word of the day. Probably a known word to many people. But, of course, when I brought this up to Douglas here, he was all over it because he's been talking about some concepts that have to do with empathy. Since we started seeing each other, frankly, he's been all about some of these like very nerdy concepts that have to do.
I think they're really interesting.
Yeah.
Compassion fade. Sympathy.
Compassion fade.
Sympathy, callousness.
Ooh, calluses. Kind of like the calluses that you got from your triathlon.
That's true. They're not calluses yet. They're still blisters, but hopefully they'll be calluses soon. The triathlon was just yesterday.
If you have not noticed, Douglas has quite a tan. I have actually a little bit of a pink face because I got probably more burned than tan, but
Yep.
You just completed a longer than Olympic distance triathlon yesterday.
I did.
In
barely.
Santa Barbara, California.
Yes, beautiful Santa Barbara. 5 hours and 40 minutes of grueling cardio, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Swim.
1 mile swim.
34-mile bike ride, 10-mile run.
Yesterday.
In that order.
Yes. So he's suffering a little bit, if you can't tell.
Yeah, I won't be standing up in this episode, nor any other one. But if I were to stand up, I would be groaning.
Yeah. And I just got to, hang out and get a little sunburn.
Cheer. Yeah,
I did some good
She
cheering.
did a lot. Speaking of empathy, she was a fantastic partner and helped carry me through the day.
Carry you through the day. Did I?
Yes, you did.
Goodness. I just want to plug that because triathlons are really hard. I did one when I was 18. One of our, very dear sort of family members has...
Future guest.
Yeah, definitely future guest. He's like a legendary triathlon coach and athlete himself. And so this
Well, now I'm legendary.
Yeah, such a legend.
Totally.
Yeah. So thank you for doing this episode, Douglas.
You're welcome.
While being very, very sore. I understand this is hard for you.
Yep.
And I have empathy for that
Yes.
because actually our experiences for triathlons now are really similar.
Yes,
I don't think
they
you've
are.
ever had such a bad one, and I did. So I have a lot of empathy for what you're going through right now.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough.
Yeah, and I totally know, especially when you talked about the beginning of the bike.
Yeah.
I totally know.
That was the point where I was really running through my head. I was like, do I want to do this for the next 4 hours? Like, really though?
Yeah.
Turns out I did want to do it for the next 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
So
if anything, to just avoid shame.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And to actually feel like I earned that beer.
Yeah. Well, now you have a beautiful medal.
Yeah.
Lots of pink in there.
I thought you were about to say beautiful body.
Oh,
but
yeah. And a beautiful body.
Yeah. No, I have a hot pink lanyard with a nice heavy medal, It's a metal medal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
It's legit.
Yeah. Finisher medal. Number one in my category, though, which is people of age 40 named Doug Daniels.
Nice. Well done. Well done.
Golf clap.
golf clap. Okay. So my empathy is for Douglas today because I have had that feeling, and
The day after feeling.
the day after feeling, and also the day of feeling yesterday. And I know how hard this is. So thank you for being here. Okay. So let's kind of get into this empathy business. I want to talk about what it is, which is maybe obvious, but there are different ways of defining it. And what we're talking about today is other-oriented empathy. So some of the things that I'm pulling from are from this Cultivating Empathy by Ashley Abramson in the American Psychological Association, one of their journals that they do. So when we talk about other-oriented empathy, this is the kind that leads to compassion, which is the word that we really want to get to with that empathy. If something leads to compassion for others, this is where that sweet heart-centered spot is, where we start to do good things and say nice things and really connect with each other, which is a huge part of the People Fuss mission.
Yeah. Carrie and I are both woke ass liberals who believe that empathy is a strength, actually. So
yeah, I definitely do. And this causes a lot of people to do good in the world. And it's where you imagine the perspective of another person and you try and read their emotions and you really try and fully understand them.
walk a mile in their shoes, as it were.
And this theory is by Sarah Conrath. She's a PhD that's mentioned in the article there. So those are her words that I'm sort of quoting for this other-oriented empathy definition. And you know, when I think of this for myself, one of the triggers for me for empathy is like when someone's losing a grandparent, I'm very easily able to access empathy for them because I went through an experience in my college years when my maternal grandmother, who was beloved, matriarch of the family, was very I was close with her, and also she was just had a really big impact on my life and my mother's life. And I witnessed her die in a hospital. I had to say really horrible, teary goodbyes. I didn't want her to go. And then after she died, I went into the room and talked to her body. And I mean, it was a really heavy experience for me when I was in college. And because I can access that so quickly, anytime a movie, a commercial, I mean, I can be listening to a podcast that's describing someone in a hospital room saying goodbye to their grandparent, and I melt down. Completely melt down. I melted down with your grandma in the hospital. His whole family was fine.
Well, in our defense, before you make us seem like unfeeling assholes.
No, they were appropriately sad.
Yeah.
I was inappropriately sad.
Yeah, we were, I would say, poignant, I guess, because like part of it was that towards the end, every time I went to visit Grandma, she would say something to the effect of, "Oh, Douglas, I am ready for the good Lord to call me home." So when she did finally pass and was on her...
Oh my God, I'm getting teary right now.
I know.
Don't talk about it too much.
Hey, look, everyone, she's about to cry. But yeah, so when she did finally pass, there was this kind of sense of relief alongside the sadness, you know, because Grandma was absolutely ready to die.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, a very foreign concept. Speaking of empathy, I don't know what that feels like being ready to die. I'm not ready to die.
I sure hope not. So that's one form of empathy when you've gone through something and it's really easy for you to access that. The other is like if something is really close to your in-group, whatever that is, your family, maybe like an activity that you share, like something that you have a lot of closeness based on your experience or based on, something being really close to you. It's really easy for us to access empathy there. And sometimes empathy can be bad, especially like what I was talking about. We're not really meant to hold way too much empathy because it can be crippling. We're not really set up for certain kinds of large scale feelings. Like if we had to take on, imagine like you could access the suffering of 1,000 people at once, you wouldn't be able to because our emotions,
paralyzed.
and that can happen to people too. So certainly,
I will get into all of that. Yep.
And I think that there are also blocks to empathy. And this is really important for today because your blocks to empathy usually are about wanting to learn and understand. So in order to gain empathy, you have to be open to understanding and learning, really open to learning. But second, and more important, is willing to question your own assumptions. That's really hard for us all to do.
Can you give an example of questioning your own assumptions in terms of empathy?
I can't think of an example for myself right off the bat, but I can think of an example that I just heard recently.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily thinking of personal.
So we love a podcast called Talking Politics with Mom.
Yes.
It's done by William Gord. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
And basically his boomer mom, she used to be conservative and she used to be quite racist. And she talks about why she was racist and why she held those beliefs. And she talks about how she was able to question those beliefs, and it was through experience. She ended up working for the welfare system that she thought that Black people were, quote, taking advantage of or whatever.
In New York City, no less.
In New York City. And through that experience, she developed a huge well of empathy through questioning her own knowledge and assumptions. And not everyone's able to do that. I think that's a testament to her wonderful ability to articulate herself and critically think. She's an amazing critical thinker. You can tell, but when you listen to her, so watch Talking Politics with Mom. It's amazing.
Fantastic.
We love Will. So that's the example that I can think of, because something that deep, which she talks about it being sort of inherent in the neighborhood.
Do you know what other, I think, aspect that she had that I think also ties into what you were talking about, how to build empathy, is there was a level of curiosity that she had. And she was motivated by her curiosity to actually go and find these quote unquote welfare queens that she had been told about, rather. So she decided, of course, this is what somebody like her does because she's amazing. She's like, welfare queens? Well, let me go see for this myself. So she went and got a job in the welfare department in New York City and wanted to go find the welfare queens. And maybe no surprise to some of you, she didn't find any welfare queens because there weren't any.
She had a very different experience, which is starting to learn and understand some of the systemic problems.
Yep.
And we talked about this on another episode, but in general, experience and education, it can do this for you. So you can build a lot of empathy by having a broad range of experiences in the world, which a lot of times a college education gives people. It gives you experience to other cultures, other types of families. When I say culture, I don't even mean like countries and culture. I mean culture, even within the U.S.
Sure.
You're going to have a friend that grew up in an immigrant Jewish family in the U.S. And then you're going to have a friend that grew up in, the deep South. And then you're going to have a
corn farmer from Illinois or whatever. Yep.
And then some like douchebag Southern California kids who
fucking wearing flip-flops all the time, bragging about triathlons and shit.
Yeah, exactly. So those experiences, though, I mean, that's how a lot of people actually, a lot of people cite their experiences when they have in-person experiences with people. That's how they develop their empathy. To some extent, we can do that through reading and storytelling and knowledge. That's why I am a big fan of the impact of storytelling, because I think we imagine as we hear stories, we imagine what things feel like, and we're able to try and step into other people's shoes by being an imaginary character, especially if it's fiction.
I think that's why movies are such a big industry and so powerful, is because, I mean, it's like the perfect voyeur moment. You're just observing people having experiences.
And I crave that.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about this too, that I really seek out stories that get me emotional. And this is kind of a woman versus man thing in some ways. Like in the heterosexual world, like women tend to watch a lot more social heart-centered dramas, and guys are a little bit more into like sports and war and that kind of thing. And we have a lot more social training for that when we're young, that that's what it is.
But it all comes down to empathy, I think. There's even the war movies. It's about like glory and triumph and like other things and significance and, manliness. Speaking of significance, why do we even have empathy?
2 reasons. And I'm boiling them down to 2 reasons,
Sure.
But you can find these in a lot of different, cited resources and stuff. We developed it evolutionarily, and some of our like great ape animal friends that are very close to us also have this. Yeah, our relatives. It's weird to say relatives when we also have human relatives, but anyway.
Friends. I'm not friends with any chimpanzees.
You would be if we had one, for sure.
It would rip my freaking face off, dude.
Eventually. They're cute when they're young.
They're great before they rip your face off.
But the development of it is first, and they talk about child rearing, and that we want to respond to the needs of our babies and our children and understand what their needs are so we can respond appropriately.
And have you ever, you see this actually play out when you see a parent, a relative, a grandparent interacting with the baby, they're just mirroring.
We
that
saw it
baby's
today
face.
with your Aunt Jeanette.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Whenever the baby or toddler or whatever is having this reaction, your instinct even, and I've done it, and I don't have a kid of my own, but my instinct is to just kind of mirror that. Big open eyes, big smile, just kind of like mirroring that child's emotions.
And more importantly, crying and having an upset face, we need to be able to empathize with that emotion to care enough to do something about it, right?
Sure, yeah.
There's actually, in some of these studies, there's a really sort of sad example, I guess, of a deaf ape mom that couldn't really hear the distress from her little baby, and so it was tough because she would almost sit on it, and it was a lot harder for her to caretake because she couldn't hear the sounds and empathize with what that was for herself. So, and you can even imagine that if you have a dysfunctional parent, so like a parent that isn't responding to your needs appropriately, that could definitely affect the empathy building of that child.
Sure.
Which is why the parenting side of this and the empathy for the parent, I mean, that's going to be an immediate sort of direct connection there. You want your kids to be able to build empathy, and you do that by showing them how to respond appropriately and caring for their needs and that kind of thing.
I just thought of this anecdote from a sociology 101 class I took in community college. So I have absolutely no idea if this is true because it was a story told to me by the professor. I haven't looked this up myself, but I think it rings true. It was a study done like in the medieval ages, almost like before there was scientific method and stuff. But this king or person or whatever wanted to find out what would happen if babies were raised, basically weren't raised, were just given their needs, like their physical needs. So the wet nurse would just come in and feed them, and then they were just kind of left alone or whatever, and they ended up dying because they didn't have that human interaction.
Yeah, well, there are real studies too, I think, again, of apes where they try and put in, basically non-real
like
moms.
the horrible 1950s style experiments that we used to do.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, it's good that we find those things out, but on the other, it's like, well, yeah, no shit.
I know.
It's kind of like, did you really need to figure out that, if you just hit a baby instead of loving it, the baby will get fucked up. Like, yeah, duh.
I thought there were some really great human experiments, though, from that time. And actually, this relates back to empathy, is that we were really testing the limits of human empathy. And luckily, it turns out, our ethical decision-making, our moral decision-making comes more from empathy than it does from rules and structure. And that's a good thing. Because even though we know a lot of Nazi soldiers were just, quote, doing what they're told, and there were some experiments about people shocking other people because they were told to. Yeah. You will find always that there's a certain percentage of people that will not go against their own moral code. Yeah. They access their empathy for people, and that is the stronger thing. And the not to defend Nazis or anything, but that shocker experiment, I think, found that it was people in authority. We have this innate trust with people in authority, which I think goes back to the whole empathy thing and cooperation and living in a tribe. We put a lot of trust in the people that we see as authorities or leaders, and so the people kept shocking people because they were just being told by somebody that they trusted to just keep shocking. The scientist wouldn't tell me to shock if it was bad or if it hurt the person or whatever, but it turns out. But it is good, like you said, to know that there's a certain percentage of us that will say, fuck you, you shock them, I'm not going to shock them. Yeah. I feel like you actually, in that experiment, you would say fuck you a lot sooner than I would. I'd probably be like, they're fine, I can shock them one more time. And then it would just take me a little longer, but I would get there, and then I would hardline.
Those cries of pain are so exaggerated.
I mean, the cries that they, fake, they're faking this, right? They're not actually shocking people because it's an experiment. But the stuff they had is like, please don't, I can't take it anymore. And like,
yeah. I didn't tell you to push the button, actually, sir. Will you wait? Stop, sir.
Oh my God. And I really wonder how, I don't think that experiment even would be able to run today in a similar way. I don't maybe too many people know about it, maybe not. I don't know.
Well, I think there's been, even since like the things like the Stanford prison experiment, which all kind of just seem to go a little bit too far, giving too much power, I think, to individuals, even in a controlled setting. I don't know. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway,
And it's going to matter. It's going to matter a lot in the coming months as a lot of these cities are being taken over by National Guard and military, and everyone's going to be testing the limits of why we're doing what we're doing and where the moral line is. I mean, a lot of people are asking, okay, this is getting into a separate topic, but I do think that this is relevant to empathy because we are relying on our people that work in positions of power to follow a moral code at some point if their orders are being given that cross
unconstitutional, hint, hint.
Yeah. So we are relying on that. And so that brings us back to the second reason why empathy was probably developed is cooperation. And cooperation is about understanding and aligning with the goals of someone in your group to kind of survive, and being in tune with their emotions. So think of it as like, let's say the chimpanzee tribe, like this chimp needs to understand that chimp is going out to battle, and if they don't, win, then it'll hurt the group and that kind of thing. They have to understand what's going on. Or even if one of the group members is in distress, at some point the survival of the whole group depends on a lot. So this idea of cooperation, if we look at, with humans, like a huge part of our survival was being able to cooperate in big groups. And that word groups and cooperate, I think, are where this empathy thing starts to turn, is because at what point does the distance between you and what you care about and what you're able to empathize with, like, where is your line as far as what your community is that you care about?
Your in-group versus your out-group.
Yeah, you're in what you consider to be your in-groups and out-groups, but even beyond that language, because that's sort of like psychological and scientific language.
Woke.
Let's think of it more of like, let's look at it as all these different circles, right? So you have you, and you definitely care about yourself and survival. That's always going to be sort of your baseline instinct. Then you have your immediate family, and a lot of people think of their family as like would do anything, would lie, would kill people for their family. I mean, that you have a really strong instinct to do that. Then you have kind of your neighborhood and maybe your closest friends, and you feel strongly about that and that you would go to bat for those people. Then I think everyone starts to really like drop off of where their lines are. Is it the people that are in your state? Is it just the USA? Are you a super hardcore nationalist and everyone else in the world can fuck off?
Yeah, from a historical perspective, in the United States, what's interesting is that it used to be the state level, like I'm a Texan, or I'm from Alabama, or I'm from New York, I'm a New Yorker. For a while there, it was definitely the United States first, and then states second, which is a flip from where it was.
And even outside of boundaries that are physical, so we're talking about like states and countries, then we start to get into cultural and sociological groups and political groups. Like, are you a Democrat versus a Republican? And do you only care about your own political group? Do you only care about white people? Do you only care about women? Do you only care about this thing that you can relate to?
Are you Protestant or Catholic?
Yeah, your religion. Yeah.
There's a joke that goes, a taxi cab was stopped by an IRA member in Ireland, and the guy says, "Are you a Protestant or a Catholic?" And the taxi driver says, "Oh, I'm an atheist." And the guy says, "Well, are you a Protestant atheist or a Catholic atheist?"
Great joke.
Thank you.
Golf clap.
Thank you. In groups and out groups, baby.
Yay. So, and the other funny thing is that over time, people can develop a lot of empathy for a different in-group if they have experience with it, and they can even like switch sides. Like we were talking about in our last episode with extremism, or one of our last episodes with extremism, you can absolutely sort of lose your empathy for one group and gain empathy for another. It doesn't necessarily expand, it shifts.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of looking at this idea of like, where empathy is and how it shuts off and how it grows and what our capacity is, what our actual capacity is. And that's where I think some of your theories that you know about and you studied are great, because it has to do with like why we care about certain things in politics, why we give to charity.
What's the motivating factor behind charity in the first place, kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah. And why does it take so much for someone to suddenly care about, let's say, a cause, a larger cause, when it doesn't immediately affect their family? You have to really be able to access a certain kind of thing. And from my perspective, this is also about marketing, and there's a big theme in here, which is empathy is also about finding common ground. So if you're struggling to have empathy for a group, let's say you have a deeply held set of beliefs and somebody's asking you to have empathy for this group, and you're really struggling because maybe you don't agree with some of the ideals of that group. If that person trying to get you to develop empathy suddenly taps into some common ground, let's say they're like, well, because of what's happening, this child no longer has clothing on their back. And then that person's like, oh, well, I
like clothing.
I remember when my kid didn't have shoes that fit them and we were so poor, and suddenly you're connecting to this child in this other group that you thought you didn't care about, but it's accessing your empathy in some way. That's what we want as humans. We want shared experience. We want common ground, and we want to be able to expand our empathy, but without crippling us. So, Douglas.
Carrie.
Your first topic today.
Yes.
How does it tie in?
The first topic is one of 4 studies that I found.
Studies.
Woo!
Get ready, studies. Put on your little thinking cap.
Yes.
We're going to get nerdy.
Yes. No, they're actually really kind of interesting, I think. And they talk about, they're all about empathy for individuals and versus groups. And it turns out that what might be seen as a bug in our moral code is actually a feature. And it's kind of interesting to think about why that is as opposed to why it isn't. The first study is a 2005 study called the Identified Victim Effect. An identified group or just a single individual.
Are we talking about SVU version or?
SVU. Oh, like
sounds like Special Victims Unit.
Special Victims Unit, an identified victim.
Yeah.
Think of it maybe instead of just an identifiable individual. So, in other words, identifying a single person or human, I should say, even instead of person, like somebody with a name and a photo, will drive larger contributions and more distress than identifying a group. Identification of groups barely helps with driving donations. So the mechanism here is affect as the driver, as in distress. How much distress do we feel when we see that Sally is starving versus when we see Sally's village is starving? And it turns out it's the individual that drives contributions and sympathy and empathy. And all of the studies that came after that I talk about kind of reinforce this in different ways. For example, in 2007, a study called Sympathy and Callousness, the Impact of Deliberative Thought on Donations to Identifiable and Statistical Victims. By the way, we're going to put all of these studies in the description for you guys so that you can read them. Aren't you excited? But this second study in 2007 showed 3 experimental conditions or categories of people. The first category being what we talked about already, the identifiable victim. The second one was statistical victims, and the third one combined the two. So identifiable victim with statistics. Identifiable victim, Sally, right? Statistical victims, Sally's country. Sally's country has a starvation rate of 73%. The village here has, 80% unemployment. Those kinds of statistics and numbers just make us gloss over, and we just don't care. And then the third category, combining the two, Sally has a 40% chance of dying in childbirth. Sally has 80% chance of not living beyond 30. Those kinds of things. Decrease the amount of empathy than just talking about Sally and who Sally is. So it kind of reinforced this is the idea that it's an identified victim that is the most important thing, but also that there is an explicit dampening effect that numbers can have, even when it's an identifiable victim. And those of you like me that just hate math will really empathize with this study because I mean, yeah, we kind of gloss over when we start hearing about statistics and stuff like that.
The only caveat I can think of with that is that, like, when people have a visual experience, like I'm thinking of people that tour Auschwitz and stuff, and they see all the shoes and stuff, and you have like a true, deeply emotional experience because of the sheer numbers of things that you're seeing, and you're imagining. You're like there having a physical experience.
Yeah, but I would counter that and say that the seeing the shoes is the personalization of it, right?
Yeah.
If I told you Auschwitz killed, 400,000 Jews or whatever, that is meaningless. That's such a large number. It's like Stalin said,
it's too
one
big
one
to
person
feel.
is a tragedy, 1 million is a statistic.
Yeah.
Brutal, but absolutely correct.
Right.
And when you go and actually see the pile of 40,000 shoes, holy shit, that really hits home.
Yeah.
Because that puts a face on it, as it were.
Yeah. And I do think that seeing a lot of them, though, is different than just one pair in this example.
This
but I
case.
think you're right that it's the personalization that we're suddenly able to access something personal.
But yeah, and because going to Auschwitz, the whole point is the scale. It's not about, unfortunately, Auschwitz isn't about the individual victims. It's about the mechanization of murder and the scale of the crime against humanity that took place there, and the shoes and the gas chambers and all the things that you see humanize it in a way that seeing numbers, even graphs or whatever, just doesn't.
And I think that's why a lot of people want to go, because they want access to those feelings.
Yeah.
I actually thought the museum here did a really nice job. We went to a really nice part of a museum that celebrated is a terrible word, that looked at Jewish history and had some really good exhibitions. And I was so thankful that I got to access some of those feelings, because it is really hard with those big numbers to feel it. It's like cognitively, you should feel something, and you feel a little weird that you don't.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm kind of wanting for people during this immigration stuff, is to like try and access their feelings to it. And I keep telling people, like, if you will please just look at this story. I've been sharing the story of this one man that got deported, and they're doing a great job of just like really trying to access exactly what you're saying. It's about this guy and this guy's family, and you see the pictures and you hear their story, and you're thinking about it, and you're able to access it, and you're able to care suddenly. So I'm trying to share stories like that of the immigration stuff to like access people.
Yeah, and it's beyond just that one guy, because many of these people that are being rounded up and deported are good people. It's not the case that every person being deported is an MS-13 rapist or whatever. They're going.
Well, the vast majority are just regular.
They're raiding Home Depot parking lots and farms. Like that's not where MS-13 gang members are hanging out. Last I checked. But the humanizing the bulk of what's going on by focusing on an individual. I think it's just a strategy of kind of getting people to start empathizing with the larger group. There's a kind of correlation in the environmental world where it's like people focus on these big, wild, famous creatures like the elephant, save the elephant or save the panda. What that does, if you save the panda, you save that panda's environment. So you're actually also saving all the plants and animals that live around the panda. It's not necessarily just about the panda itself. It's about the whole ecosystem. Similarly, it's not just about Kilmar Obrega Garcia or your friend that you found out about. It's about all of these families that are being negatively affected.
Yeah.
And by bringing that human story to the fore, the goal is to just build empathy for the rest of people that are suffering.
Yeah.
And that actually ties into the next sort of study, which kind of was... It focused a lot on the I don't want to say it focused on the quote, but there's a really apt Mother Teresa quote that fits what we've been talking about, and it is, "If I look at the mass, I will never act. If I look at the one, I will."
Yeah, that hits home. And that's been a strategy for charity. Even like when you think about TV commercials from when we were young, they don't give, I mean, they do give some statistics, and I think in some way that can be helpful, but the biggest thing was trying to develop these big emotions from these like really sad situations. And I know the classic thing is like little kids with flies around their face and stuff, but there's a reason why they did that, because they knew that would be how they give.
And you would get a card with that family's picture on it,
yes,
or something, so that there was a face and a personal association with that charitable giving.
The Sarah McLachlan commercials with the little sad puppy faces.
Yes.
I'm never going to let that go.
Yeah, well, people will just have to watch the other episodes to understand that reference.
It's about pets.
It's about pets and through the eyes of an angel. The 2007 study, If I Look at the Mass, I Will Never Act, Psychic Numbing and Genocide, reviews previous work and provides a theory, psychic numbing, or the collapse of compassion, and theorizes that our feelings peak at 1 at the individual, but start dropping immediately, even if it's that same individual plus 1, not necessarily that individual plus that village.
That's a little terrifying.
It's a little bit terrifying.
Like you can't even like put a family in there, you know? It's got to be like you have more feelings for one than you do for like a family altogether.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make any rational sense.
We are pretty selfish, egotistical beings.
We
though,
are.
so
we
I
are.
don't know.
And then in the last study that I'll mention, it's a 2014 study, Compassion Fade. Affect and charity are greatest for a single identifiable victim. And it formalizes this theory from the previous study that n equals 1, individual versus individual plus 1 decline. It's not just a decline with big numbers. The decline is immediate. It's not just Sally and her family. It's Sally and her brother. The decline starts right away. This study also found that there was a physiological correlate, meaning they found they could just watch somebody's face and see the physical reaction and determine that, oh, they just gave less because of that reaction. They focused on the zygomaticus major muscle,
Ooh.
otherwise known as the smile muscle, not a transformer, zygomaticus major.
Just sound very transformery.
Yeah, the smile muscle was the strongest when one child was being spoken about, weaker with 2 children, and weaker still with 8. And this tracked with donations almost perfectly. So there's a physiological component to this as well as a psychological component. On the little bit more positive side, the study also described what they called entitativity manipulation.
Terrible word.
I know, entitativity, the root word being entity.
That's another Ask App not to track word. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. So basically what that was saying is that if you paint groups of individuals as unrelated, then your donations are going to plummet. But if you paint those individuals as an entity, as a single entity, like a family, your donations go up a little bit. So it suggests that there's a way of reversing the compassion fade. So you're manipulating people into thinking groups of individuals are a single entity. That's what entitativity.
We are the world.
We are the children.
Yeah. Isn't that what all those songs that we're raising money trying to do is like make us all seem like one? We are one.
I thought we were just supposed to drink Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah. That might have been a side hustle effect.
Maybe. Anyway.
Stop racism and support
Coke.
corporations.
Yes. The study concluded that this compassion fade, this decline in empathy, was mediated by affect. Put simply, people just felt less good when they were helping 2 children than when they were helping 1.
So they felt better helping 1 than 2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which means that people aren't rationally calculating their impact. It's all just based on what makes us feel good, which makes sense, right? Well, like you said, we're relatively selfish animals, like most animals. But this segues wonderfully into the next topic, which is effective altruism.
This is your favorite. This is what we've been building to. I've been hearing about it for years.
Yes. It's a wonderful philosophy. So what is EA? Effective altruism.
Well, I can fill in what I know about it, which
Yes.
is that you are giving with the biggest impact. That's the short answer,
That's
but you can
that's
give the long answer.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah.
It's both a philosophy and a social movement that asks, how can we use our resources, time, money, careers, to help others as much as possible? How can we be as effective as possible with our charity, with our altruism? The movement has philosophical roots with Peter Singer's work. Peter Singer is most famous for being the father or grandfather. I don't know when you become the father versus grandfather of something. Anyway.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
When is that?
I guess when you're
just when you're
old.
Yeah, and then when you're old, you're always the grandfather.
I guess.
Weird.
But he's the grandfather of the animal rights movement. I think his fame came from his first philosophical work on animal rights. He was the first one to kind of coin that phrase, animal rights, and then kind of everything kind of moved on from there. But that's the philosophical root of the effective altruism movement, and it was actually institutionalized and formalized by a couple of dudes named William McCaskill and Toby Ord, both philosophers from Oxford, England, I believe.
And where did you first hear about it?
On a podcast called Making Sense with Sam Harris. He talks a lot about effective altruism. He's a big proponent of it because it's a way of rationally maximizing our positive effect on the world because of these studies that I just mentioned. If we rely on our empathy for our altruism, as it turns out, we kind of can be betrayed by our empathy because we're not wired to be able to empathize with large groups, right? We're wired to be able to empathize with our tribe, with our smaller in-group. So we really have to work on broadening our in-groups in the first place, and then maybe even just kind of setting aside, like, okay, I know that charity and doing good in the world feels good, but I have to do it for the sake of doing good. I can't do it just to feel good because then I won't be maximizing the positive that I can bring into this world.
And when you say like your empathy can betray you, what I actually hear is your empathy will not go as far if you just listen to your most selfish form of it.
Yeah.
Like you'll still do good.
You still do good.
You still do good things, but
Sally
if you want to have a
deserves
bigger
to live.
Yeah, if you want to have a bigger impact,
Yeah.
then you could get a little more cerebral about it,
Yeah.
which Sam Harris is super cerebral. I mean, I think he is very has a lot of emotional decision making behind a lot of things too, but he definitely likes to think of things also in a way where he is questioning his own assumptions.
Yeah.
Which is a big part of expanding your empathy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if the goal is to help people, it would make sense to think about it rationally and say, what is the most good I can do with this dollar, as opposed to what feels the best. Not to say that the latter is bad necessarily. If you're still donating that dollar to a good cause, do it, man.
Yeah.
Do it.
I want to make a quick plug with this because you said our resources, time, money, things, like careers, right? We volunteer for an organization called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates. And even though we are two people, were assigned to two kids that are brothers. We can't talk about them explicitly because of privacy issues. But the deal with this is when you become a CASA, you commit to at least 2 years of this one-on-one support. And even though it's one-on-one support, it's way different than throwing $15 at a single day event. What they're wanting you to do is take your time, which is and a little bit of money. It's like gas money and some lunch, you know. Take the resource that you have, your time, and put it to the best use. And if you think of it this way, right? Like think of kids that are in foster care. Is it more powerful for them to have a weird random stranger, you know, say hi to them for a day, or have someone like me and Doug be there, advocate for them, go to their IEPs, go to their court hearings for years? It's a longer commitment, but I think it's really, CASA has figured out that the way people spend their time, like instead of going and doing something that's not as long of a commitment, is not as useful. What the kids really need is someone who has, a stable influence in their life. And so,
and I will say, I think it goes beyond just the individual children that you end up helping, because I think we do have an impact, small though it may be, on the foster care system, in the sense that we interact with judges, we give feedback to teachers and social workers and the judges themselves. And I think that can have a positive impact on the system as a whole. And it can also educate prospective parents on the problems in the foster care system, and bring attention to those. I mean, I the only reason I was able to fundraise for going back to the triathlon, I raised almost $3,000 for CASA.
Yay!
Because I care so much about it now, and it means so much to me, and I see the impact that it can have as an organization. And it's also informed our, decision that we might end up adopting in the future, and it's given us pretty good insight into what that involves.
Yeah. And it's caused other conversations, and of course family. My mom, who was a special education teacher in San Diego for a long time and now mentors special education down there, and tutors and all sorts of things. She ended up getting involved in CASA. She does presentations for them down there. And then my, middle sister adopted and had to deal with CASA. All of a sudden it's become this like much, bigger issue for all of us. And, they could just ask for donations, but what they actually found is like, no, when people really commit time to being a volunteer position, which is special because you don't have a financial interest in the child, right?
Yeah, you get sworn in by a judge. You take classes, training, and then you actually get sworn in by a judge. So it's like it's a legal appointment. You can have education rights and all kinds of things. So it's a serious thing.
Yeah.
But it also there's really an opportunity to do some real good. Tangible good.
And I compare it to the other things we've done. I've done things like cooking nights for shelters, and I've certainly collected donations. And anytime there's an emergency or a disaster or anything, I always donate a little bit because that's kind of what I could do. We donate blood. Like, I think when we made the decision to be CASAs, it's something I had heard of and I talked to a lot about. One of the bigger things was, okay, we're comparing all these things we could do. This feels like it's going to have the most impact. It's going to be maybe the hardest, but it's going to have a long-term impact, and it's like this big commitment, and I don't regret it.
No, it's absolutely don't. Don't.
If you want to be a
it.
CASA, send us a message. We will talk to you about it.
Absolutely. Happy to answer any questions that we can about it, but obviously nothing specific about the boys.
Yeah. The other thing is, in the training, I think they expand empathy for CASA volunteers quite a bit. They do a lot of training for people that are maybe in a different socioeconomic bracket, and making sure that you're not judging them too quickly. And I really think that they expand your empathy overall. That program really does a good job of like getting you into the mindset of like, this might not be comfortable for you in certain situations, and you need to check yourself. You need to check your assumptions and figure out how to have empathy maybe for a parent who is now clean. And are you going to judge them? Are you going to be okay with them in their program having their kid? Like, you really have to be open and loving, and I think the program does a good job of testing that.
Totally. To go back to the key features of effective altruism.
Great.
4 of them. The first one being evidence-based giving, which is kind of the whole underlying theme of not just doing good, but doing the most good per dollar per hour. So even though you and I might not be affecting a lot of children, we're doing a lot of good for these 2 brothers, I think. So yeah, it's a way of kind of balancing those things out.
But the other example of that is like somebody could spend $50 on mosquito nets and save so many lives.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel sexy, but that's actually where your dollar makes the most sense worldwide. I mean, I think that's in Sam Harris's conversation that he has in his first effective altruism pod. Doesn't he talk about that?
Yeah. And again, the effective altruism is really for people that have the means, I think. And one of the things that Sam also talks about is that he automates his charitable giving. So he's completely removing himself from the feel-good part of charity, which is not necessarily what we're advocating for. Because
I don't think everybody is capable of what.
It's not what it's good for, or not what everybody is good at. But what he does is he automates it, and he automates it in the most efficient way possible so that he can maximize the good that he's doing in the world.
And I'm so glad that those people exist.
Totally.
Because we need the girl that's going to, like, you know, see a puppy commercial and donate to save a puppy. We need that person, right?
Yeah.
We need all different kinds of people. We need that person. We also need the Sam Harris who's like, automate it, do the most good, take my money.
Yeah. And he just automatically, his personal income and his organizational income, 10% are given automatically to charities based on this effective altruism philosophy. The second tenet of effective altruism is cause prioritization. So they focus on problems that are large in scale, neglected, and or tractable. So, you know, don't focus on intractable problems like what if an asteroid is going to hit the Earth. Don't donate to organizations that are researching that, because if an asteroid hits the Earth, there's fuck all you can do about it.
But what about Armageddon?
Well,
we're not going to blow it up with a nuke?
Bruce Willis is not here to save us anymore, man.
Oh, no.
Third tenet, personal action, encourages individuals to donate effectively, and we're going to give you a couple links to do so, or to choose high-impact careers. Again, obviously not something that everyone can do, but God bless you if you can. If you can say, you know what, I'm going to become a doctor so that I can join Doctors Without Borders and go into the most needy parts of the world. I mean, more power to you. And then the final tenet is long-term perspective. So they're starting to emphasize reducing existential risks, like the hoax commonly known as climate change.
That's an inside joke for our most favorite comment we've received so far.
Pandemics and AI, things that could affect future generations, because that has the potential to help billions, obviously, if you can forestall or mitigate a calamity of global implication. And
some of those things are not going to be monetary. They're going to be political. They're going to be policy based. And that's the kind of stuff that this is what I'm saying. It's so hard to get people to care about something that they can't access. So like the dangers of AI right now, it's just this like sexy, fun tool. And everyone's like ChatGPT, and we can't feel or understand the dangers very well.
Or the environmental impacts of what those data centers are doing to the environment and also the communities in which they operate.
Yeah.
The noise and the pollution and all the shit that Zuckerberg doesn't care about.
We're not very good. I mean, speaking of empathy, we're not very good when there's like a very short-term pleasure thing, like that it affects us personally. So like, I just need this one quick answer, and it uses like a cat full of water.
Yeah.
And then if someone says, well, if you do that 100 times and then you times that towards 1 million people, then, you know, that's a whole, you know, couple swimming pools, and the people in this flyover state are suffering. It's like, getting people to care about the suffering it's going to be tricky.
Too many statistics in there for
too many statistics.
Capfuls and swimming pools. And
I was trying to use good, like a swimming pool of water instead of like how many gallons.
Well,
I was trying
an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Yeah.
Too many words. Olympic-sized swimming pool. So just real quick, the call to action this week is to identify in yourself and in your life where you have the least amount of empathy. Why is that? And how can you try and understand those people more and build some empathy? So for us, we were talking about this earlier, and like many of you probably, we are severely lacking in empathy for the other side in American politics right now. And I think that goes for a lot of people. It's difficult to empathize with people that you vehemently disagree with. But if we are to bridge those disagreements, we will need empathy.
Yes. And I would say I don't lack empathy for all Republicans. Just to be clear, I think that was a pretty broad brushstroke there.
For those whom we vehemently disagree with.
Yeah, I think where I'm going to speak for myself only.
Fine.
Where I personally struggle with empathy sometimes is where I am getting these feelings that someone wants to create harm. And sometimes it's an assumption based on what they're saying. So like I'm feeling really passionate about how immigration policy is being enforced right now and all the Stephen Miller stuff. So when people display what I consider to be a lack of empathy for human beings because
And they display it with pride almost.
yeah, a little bit of pride. And they're saying things that are just really lacking empathy. Like, well, it's the law. You know, like, who cares if people are being treated like dogs?
Well,
because
they shouldn't have come here in the first place.
So that's where I start to, like, I can't understand that person. What it would require is a much deeper, longer conversation, understanding, like, why they value breaking the law so much. And here's what I would find, because I actually went down this rabbit hole with myself for someone that I love. I realized that this person valued structure and rules so much as a child because they didn't have it with one of their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that there was chaos because this person didn't follow the rules or create structure was deeply affecting this person.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing that brought this person safety and security was the parent that followed the rules and made them follow the rules. The rule following was safe and secure and happy. That was a happy place for this person.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that came from. I had to go deep down in myself to find that.
Yeah.
It was not easy.
No.
But it did give me more space for empathy. I don't know exactly where I go from there, but I got to that point at least. I had to, like, really think about, like, where is this coming from for this person? Okay, now how could we move forward? Like, that's where I got.
Yeah, and it's good place to be.
I hope so.
And that brings us to the end, Harry Prince. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share as widely as possible with somebody that you love, that you think might need to hear it. Hit us up on those socials. We do want to engage with you. Leave a comment, and we'll try and engage with you as much as we can.
Doug does a lot of really good engaging. I don't do it much because I'm too deeply affected by comments sometimes.
Well,
you're
too
good
much
at
empathy.
it? Too much empathy. I have too much empathy. No.
But yeah, leave a comment. Even if you're being an asshole, I can take it.
Subscribing on YouTube and watching other videos is a great way to support us right now as we grow. So
Yes.
we're really hoping that people, like, go to that subscribe button and make sure that you get alerted every single time that we release something new. And People Fuss is a tight-knit production produced by yours truly, Carrie Prince.
And Doug Daniels.
And it's developed by us, but it's edited and mixed by Mary Wen.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Our theme song is Human Colors by Delicate Beats.
And Yoshi has been meowing outside this whole freaking time.
I'm pretty sure he, like, tried to bust down the door twice, and we just went through this podcast like nothing was happening.
I think you might hear him in this episode. I do think you might
I hope
hear
you
him.
do.
Yeah.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.